Before the first bag of synthetic fertilizer ever arrived on a farm, plants were already plugged into an energy source that no company could manufacture, package, or sell. It surrounds every garden on Earth, operates continuously regardless of weather or season, and costs nothing to access. It's the electrical field between the sky and the soil. And a growing body of research suggests that plants don't just tolerate it, they depend on it. This is the story of electroculture, an idea born over a century ago, tested on some of the largest agricultural plots in the world, and quiet enough to be ignored by industries that profit from selling what nature already provides for free. Stand in any open field and you're immersed in something physicists call the atmospheric potential gradient. The sky carries a positive charge. The soil carries a negative charge. Between them, a voltage difference of roughly 100 volts per meter of altitude runs continuously, not as lightning or visible electricity, but as a gentle, permanent, measurable flow of charge. This isn't theoretical. Drive a copper rod into open ground, connect a sensitive meter, and you'll detect a faint current. The Earth and atmosphere are constantly exchanging electrical energy, and they have been doing so for as long as plants have existed. Plants, it turns out, are not passive bystanders in this process. Their stems, leaves, and root systems form a natural conducting bridge between sky and soil. Microscopic surface structures on leaves interact with the atmospheric charge above. Roots connect to the negatively charged earth below. Every plant is, in a precise physical sense, a living antenna operating within a permanent electrical field. Researchers have documented electrical signals, action potentials, and variation potentials traveling through plant tissue in response to environmental changes. When a leaf is damaged, an electrical wave propagates through the stem, triggering defensive responses in cells far from the injury site. When light levels shift, electrical signals coordinate responses across the entire plant. Plants communicate internally through electricity, and they do so continuously. The question that occupied a generation of early 20th century experimenters was straightforward. If plants are already operating as electrical antennas, what happens when you give them a better one? Justin Christoflo wasn't a laboratory scientist. He was a farmer and persistent experimenter who spent decades developing and refining devices intended to concentrate atmospheric electrical energy around growing plants. In October 1925, he filed a formal patent in Switzerland, document CH118648A, granted the following year, describing a system of copper and magnetic steel components designed to capture atmospheric charge and direct it into the root zone of plants. The patent remains on record today, a detailed technical document specifying every component of the apparatus. Christoflo's claims were bold. He reported oats growing to unusual heights, declining trees recovering vigor, and vegetable yields significantly exceeding what neighboring plots produced without the device. He published his findings openly, welcomed visitors to his experimental gardens, and provided photographs and measurements to agricultural journals and the press. The British Electroculture Committee, established in 1918 under the Ministry of Agriculture, tracked work like Christoflo's for nearly 2 decades. Their files gathered field reports, yield records, and photographs from experimental sites across Europe. The committee's interim reports documented striking results: giant grain stalks, unusual vegetable growth, while also noting the persistent challenge of independent verification. Original measurements from neutral third parties were difficult to obtain, and the most dramatic photographic evidence remained unconfirmed by outside observers. The committee's findings, stamped not for publication, rarely reached mainstream scientific audiences. By the late 1930s, as synthetic fertilizer production scaled rapidly and the economics of industrial agriculture took hold, the formal investigation of electroculture quietly wound down. Modern plant physiology has filled in details that early experimenters could only speculate about. When plants are exposed to external electrical gradients, measurable biological responses follow. Studies using fine electrodes have documented voltage-sensitive ion channels in plant cell membranes that respond to even subtle field changes, shifts of just a few microvolts per meter. These channels regulate the flow of calcium, potassium, and other ions that control cell expansion, stomatal opening, and photosynthetic efficiency. Research has shown that plants in enhanced electrical environments increase production of antioxidant compounds and activate gene expression pathways associated with growth and stress resilience. Root elongation, nutrient uptake efficiency, and chlorophyll production have all shown measurable responses in controlled electrical field experiments. The geometry of early electroculture devices, particularly copper spirals, wasn't arbitrary. Spiral forms concentrate and focus electromagnetic energy in ways that straight conductors don't. The same geometry appears throughout biological systems, from plant growth patterns to shell structures, suggesting a deep relationship between this shape and natural energy dynamics. Early experimenters who built copper spirals and oriented them carefully in the soil were, whether they understood the physics fully or not, working with real principles of electromagnetic behavior. The most compelling recent evidence for electroculture came not from a backyard experiment, but from a study conducted by the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences across 3,600 hectares, an area larger than 6,000 football fields. Rather than passive copper antennas, this trial used high-voltage wires suspended above crops to amplify the natural atmospheric electrical field across large growing areas. No synthetic fertilizers were applied as part of the electrical treatment. The results across the trial area showed yield increases of approximately 30%, with reductions in pest pressure of between 70 and 100% in some sections. The pest reduction finding is particularly significant. Current understanding suggests that plants under electrical field enhancement produce higher concentrations of volatile defensive compounds, making them less attractive to insects. Healthier, more electrically active plants appear to resist pest colonization more effectively than stressed ones, a relationship that offers a potential alternative to pesticide application rather than simply a supplement to it. This wasn't a small-scale preliminary study. The acreage involved, the institutional backing, and the magnitude of the results place it firmly outside the category of anecdote. It represents the most rigorous large-scale test of electroculture principles conducted to date, and its findings warrant serious attention. The passive version of electroculture, a copper spiral placed in the soil near growing plants, requires no power source, carries no electrical hazard, and costs less than a few dollars in materials. Use 14-gauge bare copper wire. Shape it into a loose spiral with a diameter between 5 and 20 centimeters, using a wooden dowel as a form to keep the coils even. 3 or more turns, spaced to allow light and air through. Drive the dowel into the soil so the base of the spiral sits roughly 10 centimeters deep, with the upper tip extending just above the soil surface. Orientation matters. The tip of the spiral should point toward magnetic north, aligned with the Earth's geomagnetic field. A basic compass handles this in seconds. Position the finished spiral 10 to 20 centimeters from the base of your target plant. Track results methodically. Photograph plants at regular intervals. Record height, leaf size, and any observations about pest pressure. Weigh harvests at the end of the season and compare to unmodified control plants nearby. The experiment is only meaningful if the comparison is honest. Fruiting plants, tomatoes, peppers, squash, and leafy greens are the most commonly reported high responders. Individual results vary with soil type, plant variety, and local conditions. Global synthetic fertilizer consumption now exceeds 185 million tons annually at significant financial cost to growers and measurable environmental cost to soil health, waterways, and carbon budgets. The infrastructure supporting that market is vast and deeply embedded in agricultural practice worldwide. An approach that draws on freely available atmospheric energy rather than purchased inputs doesn't fit neatly into that economy. That's not a conspiracy. It's simply how markets work. Solutions that don't generate recurring revenue attract less investment and less institutional enthusiasm than those that do. The atmospheric electrical field above your garden isn't going anywhere. It was there before the first fertilizer factory opened, and it will remain long after the last one closes. Whether a copper spiral can meaningfully tap into it is a question every gardener can investigate personally, at minimal cost, with nothing more than wire, a compass, and careful observation. The energy is already there. The experiment is yours to run.